What if I told you that your suffering isn't just happening to you, but that on some level, you've actually been choosing it? Now, wait, before you reject this idea, please hear me out. We don't consciously want to suffer, none of us. But what if the unconscious mind, the part of us that has been conditioned by generations of trauma, has been holding on to pain as a way to survive? And what if that same mind is now keeping you from stepping into your divine radiance, your sovereignty, your true power? Here's a truth that no one likes to talk about. You're not here to endlessly process trauma. You're here to transcend it. You're not meant to keep repeating your ancestors' wounds. You're meant to rewrite the story. You're not broken. You are a sovereign force of divine light. But to truly step into that light, we have God to address one of the most difficult truths. Pain is not just something that we actually experience, it's something that we have been conditioned, yes, conditioned to hold on to. In today's episode, Elvira and I are breaking this cycle together with you. We're going to talk today about how A Course in Miracles spiritual psychotherapy, as taught by our brother Jesus Christ, reveals that we unconsciously choose pain to maintain a victim identity. And we are also going to talk about how to free ourselves. We're going to talk about how Kundalini Yoga therapy rewires the nervous system and energy body so that you can stop carrying this trauma so that that doesn't even belong to you. And we're also going to look at why the key to true generational healing isn't about just processing wounds. It is about embodying sovereignty, something that probably your ancestors could not. So if you're feeling tired, you're feeling stuck, if you're drained, or if you're trapped in emotional cycles that do not serve you, then this is going to be a huge wake-up call for you. How are you, Elvira?
I'm doing amazing. How are you doing?
Doing amazing as well. And I know that today's subject matter can be very triggering. So we are starting with the advance notice that if especially you are somebody that has not done any type of inner healing work, that what we're going to talk about today can be very triggering, but as we move through the segments, I promise you that all of this will make sense. Because I know for me, when I first started A Course in Miracles, which for many of you that don't know, some of you have asked me and you send me messages, A Course in Miracles is basically the teachings of Jesus Christ. That's the way I would describe it. It has no author. It is authored and channeled by Jesus Christ. And to me, I studied the Bible for as a child and as an adult because I was always into studying all the different spiritual traditions. And never did I become so close to Jesus Christ and to understanding the true teachings of our brother Jesus Christ of unconditional love, of unconditional forgiveness, without the course, without A Course in Miracles. And it is spiritual psychotherapy on steroids because you have to think about it. Our brother Jesus Christ was a radical being. The reason why there were only 12 disciples that followed his teachings is because he came to completely debunk the unreality of this reality. He came to teach unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness, radical acceptance. And even though when I first started as a student of the course, everything that was said there was incredibly triggering. I threw the book away a few times. Fast forward to now, and I can see how incredibly fundamental it has been in the process of generational healing. Because when I think about generational trauma, especially the things that I've experienced in my life, there are things that feel completely unforgivable, and that the course triggered me so bad to not only make me aware that I was acting like a victim, but also that I was actually choosing to continue to identify with these stories, which is why I'm putting this label at the beginning that you will more than likely be triggered. Allow these triggers to come up. Do not try to stop them, and work with us through this time we're together with an open heart. You can't underhear this, what we're going to say with the mind. It's going to have to be with your heart. And of course, let us know in the comments what your thoughts are about this. Did you have a similar experience as I did when you first were learning about the course?
Yeah, and I'm actually very excited about this subject, specifically this topic. I don't know. It just this week has been something else, but I feel like we're this week in the Course in Miracles, we are talking about how you were mentioning how you're watching this video or this podcast about this guy saying that when you go through an awakening, you kind of go through a psychosis. And it seemed like you didn't go through that. I did. I felt I was going crazy. But it's true. Like I've always had a lot of faith and I believed in God since I was very young. And it's always been very strong. I think once A Course in Miracles came in and the Kundalini yoga put in together, something else happened. There was like an awareness, a very high awareness that came to me, but it seemed like it came to me all at once where I did feel I was going through a psychosis. But like you said, I don't think everybody goes through it. At the time that I was going through it, it felt very, I mean, it was strong. It was very, very strong. It was like I was purging, just constantly just crying and awareness left and right just coming at me. But I'm very grateful for it because I think I went through it because what I thought was real, what I thought wasn't. And that threw me off completely because I'm like, oh my goodness, like what has it all been a lie? Like, what is this? That's where I felt it just really threw me off. But I'm very grateful for it because it's brought me to a level of healing. And I think that's where people get a little bit scared. They're like, I don't want to go through that. But like I've said it before, I'd rather be here now than where I was before. Because that was still painful where I was before. Now there's levels. Like if you've been following us, like there was the podcast that we did. I think it was I think it was the Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, where I had the awareness of when I have an argument with my husband, I go through this panic, like this. I get scared where I think we're gonna get a divorce. That's it. We're done. It's over. And I was playing this narrative of what actually happened to my abuelita, where he just left. And now, like we had an argument just recently, and I didn't feel that at all. Like it's gone. It was it's like I know it's like I know where we stand. It's weird. It didn't affect me like it would affect me in other times. So the growth is there, and that makes me excited to realize, oh my goodness, like this is something happened. I released something. Like I let it go to the point where now I'm like, I'm at peace. It's fine. We're fine. I know I love him regardless of whatever we argument we had. I know he loves me. Like we're committed to each other. Like it's not the end of the world. We're not gonna get a divorce. It was just the moment in time that we went through, and that's it. Obviously, there's still growth on other with other people that I still need to do. But this is exciting to me. I think it's I hope people get excited to know it's possible.
Yes. Oh my God, so much wisdom there. Where do I start? Okay, so the reason why that's a perfect example because the reason why now you're not as triggered, meaning reverting back to the abandonment wound that was created as a child, right? With mama. Again, we all have abandonment wounds for different reasons. Mom could have physically not been there, mentally, emotionally, depression, all this other stuff, right? So it's amazing for you to be aware of that growth now, to see like, oh my God, I'm not reverting back to that old way. But you did exactly what we're talking about today. So that's a great example because, and then I'm going to go back to what you said about spiritual psychosis because it's connected to this. Because what you basically did is you went on this journey of the inner work through the course, the teachings of Jesus Christ, you through Kundalini yoga, where what you did was you had to release all these identities that what we're talking about here, we're addicted to. I'm broken. I'm unlovable. I'm not worthy. He's doing this because of my worth, not because he is going through a hangry moment or whatever it is, like we say, right? So this is exactly what I'm talking about, that most women don't understand that we are unconsciously reverting back to these generational trauma patterns. I didn't know I was doing it. I always just thought I was the victim and that everybody around me was the problem. So this is exactly what we're talking about. Now, going back to what you said about spiritual psychosis. So We were talking about spiritual psychosis this week in A Course in Miracles. So every Tuesday at Satori Vitality and Spirituality, which is our women's community, the Sovereign Sisterhood Academy is not open for enrollment right now. That's for generational healing. But Satori is open for enrollment. Some of you have asked me. The link is below. It's a membership community where we basically have 3 classes a week, Kundalini Yoga, as well as A Course in Miracles. So on Tuesday, we had A Course in Miracles class. Lizzie leads those classes. Amazing soul, just wise beyond years. And we were talking about spiritual psychosis, and there was a guy who, and for some of you that don't know, spiritual psychosis, like when somebody, it can happen abruptly, it can happen through trauma. You're going through a dark night of the soul. It could happen through you plant medicine. It could happen through psychedelics, is what I'm referring to. It could happen to you studying a lot of religious spiritual teachings. If you're like somebody who's reading the Bible, Kabbalah, autobiography of a Yogananda, it could just happen abruptly where you feel like you don't know what is real and what is false. Meaning you're not grounded in your body. You literally are. I mean, I've had situations, and I don't really think I'd went through a psychosis. My psychosis was like very pleasant. It was just very connected to the divine, where that's not normal. And typically you see like people that are, and I've helped people through this, very connected to the divine, but then the other extreme, completely disconnected, and they feel like they're going crazy, completely crazy. The sad thing about that is that in the West, and this is going to lead to what we're talking about here, when you go to the doctor here and they see what you're going through, what do? They're going to give you meds. They're going to, what happens when someone is going through with a mental state of instability? They put you in a freaking, in a manicomio. What do you call those in the English? What are they?
I would say the loony house,
The
but
loony house. I was gonna say that too. I was gonna say that too.
I would always say that I felt I was going crazy and I was going to end up in the loony house. But
Exactly. And that's how you feel, because basically what's happening is all that you believed is being shattered. All that you believe. And we think that it's scary, but the real fear we have is we're actually afraid of love. What is shattering, that's why people go through spiritual psychosis. In A Course in Miracles is very confrontational about that, because A Course in Miracles, our brother Jesus Christ is not trying to force us to remember all the bad things that happened to us. We're not bypassing them by any means. Jesus Christ says, acknowledge them, see them, don't pretend like they were not there. But now let's move to transcend them. How do we transcend them? Stop giving them meaning. So people in the West see spiritual psychosis as something negative, like I'm going crazy. In indigenous tribes, they see psychosis as a spiritual emergence. So if somebody was going through what we would feel here like going crazy, the communities would gather, they would do ceremony around the individual. Why? First of all, they recognize that illness in one person means that there's illness in the entire community. So they're not just going to be like, you're the problem, we're going to leave you out there. So that means that there is a great opportunity for the person to heal, but also for the entire community to heal. They also know that when somebody goes through that and they can't tell what's spiritual versus the physical, that a shaman is going to emerge. Why? Because what's happening there is all of the false illusions of this reality, which are that we have to be in a battleground, that we're separate from God, that we're disconnected, that we're sinners, all those things, when you do this work, they start to fall off. And our ego, which is the programming of the mind that has been happening since we were in the womb, holds on to these identities, because who would you be without that story of abuse? Who would you be without that story of abandonment? Who would you be? Like I told you, I did a coaching call with a woman, and once we went through everything, I let her talk for like 45 minutes. And then it ended up to the last thing. So I go, so you're telling me that you're choosing this story of an abandoned daughter, her mom had transitioned already, in order to continue to honor your mom in this way? And when I said that out loud, she was like, oh my God, I am doing that. Like for some reason, I feel that if I heal myself, that's not honoring my lineage. It's like what you were talking about a few episodes ago, when when there's a lot of miscarriages in the family, and when you got pregnant, it's like, I feel guilty for that. That's what generational trauma is. That is how mad and insane our egos are, that we literally will not go to the healing workshop, will not go to the healing class, will not do the meditations, will throw away A Course in Miracles teachings from A Course in Miracles from our brother Jesus Christ, because who would we be? And that's why we suffer. Maybe for me, I had already been studying the Course for such a long time that the Course has been so adamant about teaching what is real from what is false. I don't know why I didn't have those. I mean, I had really near death experiences that were enough, right? I had two different ones, but I never got to see the real frightening part. Like I've always been able to still understand that this is the reality. And I also think it's also because some of you all, and especially my community, are born with a lot of psychic gifts. I was not, I had to develop them. A lot of you in our communities are born with plasma energy. You can see the spirit world. You can see in the dreams. You can read energy already. So I think that people that are born with all of that plasma energy can have a higher probability of this being more painful and suffering, because again, you've struggled all of your life to know what is real and what is not. And more than likely, we've also never had parents that have supported us and have helped us through the journey. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it goes back to we only know what we know.
Yes.
So we grew up repeating these generational things of abandonment, like they're all gonna leave. Like in my mom's side, the majority of the women and even the men too, except like the men remarry or they get with somebody faster, but the majority of women end up by themselves. So there's this abandonment wound where it keeps repeating itself and nobody's aware of what's actually happening. And we're talking about 4 or 5 generations that keep repeating itself. And it kind of goes back to when I would get in an argument with my husband, automatically in my head, we're getting divorced. That's it. It's over. He's going to remarry. He's going to find somebody else. I'm going to end up alone. It was this whole narrative that played in my head that I wasn't even aware that I was doing it.
Oh,
You know what I mean? And then just the dark nights of the soul, it was again, I only knew what I knew. I thought what was started to become awareness of that's not what it is and that's not how it should be. And like all this truth started coming at me that I felt I was going crazy. But at the same time, I felt this relief of like, finally, I'm getting to see what really is. And I feel that was the emotion that I was having of the death of what I thought was and the rebirth of what actually is. Because I did ask him, I want you to show me, I want to see everything and everyone as they are, including myself. And that was also a process of me being able to see myself, how I was showing up in life, how I was responding, and being very aware. And it was a work in progress to the point where, like, yeah, just recently I was still going through that process in my head when me and my husband would have an argument. But now, this last time, I was like, oh, we're fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. He's tired. He's upset. He's been very stressful lately with work and everything. I understand. I have been stressed out too. We're just both reacting to whatever. That doesn't mean it's over. That doesn't mean he doesn't love me. That doesn't mean I don't love him. But I've also did have when I was going through the dark nights of the soul, I also had this divine connection with God. I had this very special moment with him where I felt him intensely all around me. It was so intense, his love that he has for us, that I could feel it. It just felt so thick and suffocating of how much he actually loves us that I was, what is this? It was so intense and it was so beautiful at the same time. Like, wow, I had no idea. And I think we get scared of that because it did feel scary. Like how can all this love actually exist? And we're not used to feeling that. So when you feel it, you're like, whoa, what is this? You probably have a tendency to just, this is not real, and you push it away. But again, I had to push through it. I'm like, no, I have to continue forward because my old life, I felt I was suffocating. And even though this love felt suffocating, I'd rather feel this than what I was feeling over there because I was dying. I
yeah.
really felt my soul was dying. And if my soul was dying sooner or later, I was not going to make it. And like I tell my children, this last year has been difficulty with health wise, but regardless, I am so grateful because I feel God has been preparing me to get to this moment. And this moment is just a huge miracle and a blessing that is pushing me even more forward so we could keep ascending higher and higher closer to God. And that's why I get so excited on this topic when I saw this is what we're talking about. I'm like, oh, that's exciting for me. Because I want people to want to join this journey. I want them to want to like grow into themselves and who they truly are, and it's beautiful. And I'm seeing it. For instance, my daughter was having a really hard time. She was going through depression. She was going through a really difficult time. And these last couple of months, she just committed 100% to God. She's all about God. And she started this coaching program, the one that I first started with. And this weekend, she's actually staffing, which means she's part of the coach group, which she's not supposed to be there yet because in order to do that, there's the basic weekend, advanced weekend, which she's staffing right now, advanced, and then she needs to do the leadership program, which is 3 months, which I did as well. They need to finish all of that in order for her to staff. So for the coach that I actually had as well, asked her to join the staff. They told her this Wednesday they had a meeting to prepare for this weekend. They told her the coach that asked her to join, the main coach, she wasn't in the meeting, but the other coach there told her the fact that she chose you says a lot because you're not supposed to be staffing until you finish your leadership program, the 3 month program. And she's already asking you to staff. So that says she sees something in you. And I'm like, oh, and I see her. I see her radiance. I see her coming into herself. And that makes me excited because, yes, it was difficult for a while. She was really going through it for a while. But then to see this growth and to see her coming into herself and I see her shine, I'm like, oh, like, why wouldn't we want to see that in ourselves and our loved ones? It doesn't make sense to me. It's worth it. Totally worth it.
Your children all are incredible souls. They're beautiful in every way, shape, or form. But your daughter that you're speaking about, she's always had it in herself. And the reason why they recognized it in her now is because she recognized it in herself. She's been on this journey. She's a badass. She's done coaching at such a young age. That's one thing that I tell my sons, invest in yourself. Please invest in yourself. Get the coach, get the mentorship. Everybody who you hire to help you, especially at such a young age, is going to be a huge impact for your life. I wish I would have started investing in myself since I was young. I didn't start doing it until later, until I got into real estate. But it wasn't even, I wish I would have gone into the investment of a spiritual coach or like like mindset versus business all the time. It was just about, hustle, hustle, hustle. But yeah, your daughter is an amazing soul and she had to go through those things to find her core too. But it's because you did it. I mean, you said something so beautiful right now. You had to have the courage to say, as much as I want to see them for who they are, I also see myself. And don't you think that awareness is what scares a lot of people to do this work?
Oh, definitely. It's not easy. And I've had other people that I recommended
Mhm.
to this program when I was going through it, and they're still stuck there because they refuse the ego.
Yeah.
It's so strong. They refuse to see it. They refuse because the program could be very strong. They need to, the way this starts, I mean, they're all different. But when I started that program, they need to break you down. I didn't understand in the beginning. They need to break you down in order to rebuild you back up again. And and they tell you the truth. I mean, they have to be hardcore straight to you how you're really showing up in the world. How are you showing up in life? And you need to hear it and you need to be humble enough to hear it and be like, wow, this is how I'm showing up. You don't even know me and you already know this is how I've been showing up in life. That was to me like, wow, I really need to like check myself because if you don't even know me and you already know this is how I'm showing up and you're telling me, that was shocking to me.
Yeah.
And some people can't handle that. And I've had family that I paid for them to go through this program. It was completely reversed. They didn't understand what was happening. They're still to this day, I took it in 2018. To this day, they're still in the same place because they refuse to acknowledge and look at themselves in the mirror. And it's necessary. And it could be very painful, it could be very difficult, but it's so rewarding. It's
Yeah,
so liberating.
absolutely. Yeah,
And that's why I hope people see that, like it's possible.
yeah. And again, even with the course, it's you have to acknowledge
Yeah.
first what happened. We can't pretend it didn't, right? And Jesus is not saying, let's just bypass it and it's all love and light. So it is. And again, because we probably were not seen as children going through all of this, and our parents were never seen. But after that, it's a whole process of remembering who you are at your core. And it sounds easier said than done, but again, Christ only had 12 disciples. Why were so little people actually walking the talk about that? Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the spiritual reasons. Let's talk about there's also a biophysical, we're going to talk about the nervous system. But to begin with, when we go through pain is not just something that gets inflicted on us, it's something that we internalize and use. So we actually hold on to the suffering because it makes us feel innocent. It makes others feel guilty. The moment that we stop using suffering as a proof of our pain, we actually stop needing it. And I think about my lineage and even my grandmother, I really felt that a large part of her life, she lived like a martyr. It was almost like numerous tragedies in her life, children. No one should ever have to bury a child, right? No one should ever have to bury their husband or anything like that. But it's almost like she just accepted it. Like she was just like, this is what God is giving me. God never punishes us. This is the whole problem.
Well,
Religion
I
has,
don't think she accepted it though. She
what's
was
that?
I don't think she truly accepted it though.
She never did.
But
You
she was
can't.
angry about it. She was angry about
Exactly. Exactly. And you can't never accept it if you say that I deserve this. God is trying to teach me something. God never punishes us. We choose the sickness. We choose the illness. We choose the toxic relationship. We're not choosing it consciously. We're choosing it unconsciously because of the pain. The pain is inflicted on us. That's what we were talking about this week in the Idols of Sickness and Course in Miracles chapter 10. That's what we're studying. We idolize sickness because if we idolize the sickness, then we have an excuse to project the guilt out. We get it. We have an excuse to make other people feel guilty about what the world has done to us. So really, you are addicted to this because you don't want to level up. You don't want to see your light. You don't want to see yourself the way God sees you. When you do this healing work of the healing of the mind with spiritual psychotherapy, you don't bypass, you realize that everything is part of the whole, and even the sickness, even the abuse, even all that. And it sounds crazy because I've said this in ways to people that have gone through generational trauma and they have started crying. I've sat in front of them and they have started crying and say, I wish I was never used for that. I wish this would have never happened. Why? Because we're starting at the level of healing the mind in the very beginning stages, and because your nervous system, well, let's go back to that nervous system of ours, right? A big part of the healing journey is the Kundalini yoga practices allow us to expand our nervous system to contain and hold these freaking emotions that our ancestors couldn't. If you've gone through the abuse, Dr. Gabor Mate says that 95% of all trauma is generational. That means that somebody in your lineage went through it too, and they didn't get the healing. They didn't get the grief first. I get it. So when I understood this, and as hard as this to sound, I felt that I was the sacrifice for my family, and not in a bad way, because at the root word of sacrifice is make sacred. So my journey of generational healing has been making my pain sacred, making myself sacred, going against what everyone does in this world, which means if your mom wasn't there for you, your dad wasn't there for you, you hate them, you judge them. If somebody abused you, you hate them, you judge them. I decided to go the other route. It wasn't working for me. I lived like that for a long time, being upset and angry at people. But when I started the Course in Miracles journey, I chose to walk the talk of our brother Christ's teachings. It was not easy. It was years and years of salvation path of forgiveness. So the way I see myself is sacrifice, and this is the problem with the English language too. We put negative connotation against these words like spiritual psychosis. Sacrifice, our brother Jesus Christ was never sacrificed. He went on that cross and he said, and I don't have the exact words, but in the Bible, I lay this body down because I want to, not because you all are killing me or unaliving me, whatever that is, right? He said, I choose this because this is my legacy. I am not in pain because God lives within me. And we don't do that as human beings. We put the cross on. We
Mhm.
put the cross on, we carry it, and then we hold resentment towards everybody around. That's why families are so broken. I get it. The abusers are within the family 9 out of 10 times. Believe me, I understand. And I'm not even saying that you should still be best friends with the abuser, but you still have to do the work of releasing the pain. And you can get to the point where you will never see anyone as an enemy or a Judas, where you will actually have compassion for them and be able to see the Christ in them. That's radical. That's what our brother Jesus Christ is. So when I took the path of, I am going to do this work, it ends with me, it ends with me, it ends with me. That's what I had to do. And not everybody supported it. Just the way our brother Jesus Christ was called the heretic, like the closest family was the one that was triggered the most because they're like, no, who am I going to be without my anger, without my ability to continue to be a martyr? Who am I going to be? Again, they're not saying this out loud, but unconsciously that's what's doing. So it was not accepted that I was doing this healing journey. I'm triggering everyone to stop drinking alcohol. I'm triggering everyone to heal their marriages. I'm triggering everyone to heal their relationship with their parents. I'm triggering everyone to be a conscious mother. That's exactly what Jesus Christ did. So my sacrifice was, I don't care about being approved of. I don't care about being popular. I don't care about being famous, which I had a really big problem with back then. When I was a real estate broker, that's all I wanted. I wanted attention. I wanted a name. I wanted notoriety. That's why I got involved in everything and did everything. The work that I do now, I don't do it to save anyone. The work that I do now is because I've accepted the Christ inside of me and I see the Christ in that person. And the only thing that I'm here to do is to be a channel of the divine. And if I accept the Christ in me, may that person also see the Christ in themselves. That's it. That's my only work. Sounds easy, but it's hard because we cannot accept the Christ in us. Because again, let me stay victim so that I can then be the innocent one and call out. How many people do you know who call out all the bad things that everyone else is doing? Why? Because they don't want to deal with what's going on inside of them. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. And then right now, when you were saying, the sacrifice, how it's actually there's sacred into that word, and God was not sacrificed. He chose to be on that cross. And just like he chose to be on the cross, we also chose this journey. We chose our parents. We chose to come into this life. I feel like there was already contract before we came in. We just don't remember. And God's like, okay, you're gonna take this on. And I'm like, yeah, bring it on. Like I've said it multiple times, but we've had like, in the Sovereign Academy, we've had like certain like ceremonies or, I don't know, where we get together. And I'm like, bring it on. Because every time we do like a challenge, every time we do, there's some kind of level up, there's some kind of awareness. So instead of seeing it as a sacrifice, we chose this life. We chose this contract to go through this, to live through this. We just forgot, but we chose it in order because we knew that was the path we needed to take for our level to ascend higher and higher and higher, and also bring our lineage with us.
Right,
So instead of saying a sacrifice, like we chose it. We're the chosen ones. It's like they say, we're the chosen ones. God felt so strongly and has so much faith in us. He says, you have it in you
right,
to do what I need for you to do to show all my other children where they need to go. And it's a privilege. Not that we're better than anybody else,
right,
because it takes a lot, it takes work, and it can be very painful at times. But it's like, what a privilege that God said, you have it in you and I believe in you. And you're gonna show them. Because yeah, the family gets triggered. They're the first ones to get triggered. They're like, how dare you? My dad, I still yesterday, he was kind of pushing my buttons yesterday. because he's like, that little program you went to, that's where all the problems came. And I'm like, Dad, that is not true. All the women that go to that little program get divorced. I'm like, Dad, that is not true. And he was just on one, just constantly poking at me. I'm like, Dad, you need to stop. Leave me
Mm,
alone.
yeah.
Stop. But he can't see it either because his ego's like, no, he's still in that victim. Like this happened to me, blah, blah, blah. But and also in our culture, we also have a lot of, es la cruz que te tocó, cárgala. And if that's
Yeah.
the cross that you were giving, that you were chosen, then you chose that cross. Like they say, like even with our spouses, you chose that cross, so now you carry it. And it shouldn't be that way. And they ingrain this in our head, like, well, that's the cross I need to carry. So then we're constantly like this with our spouses, and it shouldn't be like that. Like, what do you mean, like cross? It shouldn't, that's not my cross. Like, if anything, they're teaching us so many things because my husband has taught me so much. I don't even think he's aware of what he's taught me, and I know I've taught him, and we both together choosing to grow and to do better. Like what a blessing! Instead of saying like, "Oh, that's my cross," like, no, it's not. Like, what do you mean? You know, and unfortunately, the family too, they get so triggered that they start seeing this growth, or they start seeing your light, or they start seeing you happier, getting along better with your marriages or your kids or whatever. And you feel a lot of times they don't tell you, but you feel it like, how dare you? Who do you are to actually be happy when I'm over here miserable and I'm older than you and I haven't figured it out? And I'm like, well, because sometimes our family, our ancestors, when they're older too, I'm not going to listen to this little girl because they see us like little kids, they're like, you're younger than me. You don't know more than I do. Every,
Right.
everything that I've been through, you're going to tell me.
Mm,
After everything that I lived through, you're going to tell me. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. Even you don't even have to tell them everything. Just the way you show up. Some people get triggered, and other people, they're like, wow, I really like, what are you doing? Keep doing it because I see the growth and it's amazing to see. I get that more from people that are not family. I'll get
mm,
messages from people like, wow, I've seen your growth. I don't know what you're doing, but I love it. I get that a lot more from people that I know than from family. And I think
oh,
that's so sad. We need to change that. That needs
yeah. 1,000%. I mean, it's so obvious, like in social media, I get so much support from strangers, like complete strangers. My family's like, I'll never like that. I
yeah,
will.
they don't even like it. They don't even like the post.
Exactly, but it's okay.
Yeah,
Again, we have to take this path of not needing to be approved of
yeah,
because
yeah.
again, we're just saying things that they know that they should be doing, but because of the programming, they don't. And it is a lot of it, of course. Like I said, when we go through emotional trauma, then the brain gets impacted, right? The nervous system gets impacted. But by the same token, I believe in spiritual healing. I believe in miraculous healing. Why? I mean, if you really are a churchgoer and if you really are a follower of Jesus Christ, why haven't you talked to Jesus Christ about relinquishing the grievance? Why haven't you talked to Jesus Christ about helping you forgive? Why don't we do that? Like, again, it's this whole I need to stay in this victim mentality because what the Course teaches us is it's shocking, but we do it so that we can feel validated to be angry, to be guilty. The ultimate expression of this is when somebody unalives themselves. Because when somebody unalives themselves, they are basically saying to the world, look what you did to me, world. And I'm angry about it. So now all of you all are going to have to pay. And imagine if our brother Jesus Christ did that, we wouldn't be talking about him right now. And that's the whole thing that you need healing. We all need healing at the level of the mind because everything that happens to us in this life is for a reason. It's happening for us. You set out a rocket of desire, the universe molds itself. When I said I'm gonna break the cycle and I'm gonna heal myself in 7 generations before and after me, it was not all love and light. I had to go through major confrontations of physical, mental, and spiritual illness. I had to, 1,000%. And I didn't think I was coming back from any of them. Like it felt like near death experiences. I haven't had to do that anymore. Like you said, we level up with our journeys and there's a lot of growth, but it's not like that anymore. Now it's like I just need like a couple of weeks to rest. You know, as I was sharing in February, I'm really trying to take it a little bit more easier. And in March to take care of a few things that I got to do about my health too. But now it's like everything is happening for me because I'm not addicted to the pain. I'm not addicted to that story, that martyr story of, oh well, God obviously wants me to just go through this, and then you just kind of cross your hands and just believe that you are just like a victim. That's the hardest part. And again, it has to do with the nervous system and the brain too. But if you go to church or if you're a spiritual person, why don't you pray? You know, like that's my question. I mean, I prayed to I didn't pray at the beginning for sure because I thought God was like a judgmental God that sat on a chair and judged me all the time. So I didn't have a relationship with God. Now, oh my God, God and I are talking all day, every moment. My brother Jesus Christ too. I was very like jaded because I didn't like religion and the programming and the doctrine. So even when I would teach A Course in Miracles for such a long time, I was very careful about saying Jesus Christ's name because I didn't want to trigger anybody. Until one day, and this just happened to me like washing the dishes. I was getting ready for the class. I think it was going to happen that night, and Christ came to me, and Christ is like, "Why are you denying me?" And I was like,
Oh,
"What?" Like, what? And why are you so afraid to speak about my name? This happened about 3 years ago. I still remember. And I
yeah, I
said,
remember.
you remember I was sharing with you? And I just started bawling and crying. Since that day, I've been like, Christ is King, Christ is King. Because I had a lot of healing to do with the religion, with the part of the program of I am a sinner, we killed him. He died because of our sins, and look how much he suffered. As a little girl, I hated seeing Christ on that cross. I literally would cry. I asked my mom. My mom said one day I asked her, "Well, why is he up there?" And even to this day, like she has one in her house. I'm like, don't put him like that because that's how they want you to remember him. And he was so much more than this. And that's how they keep us in these loops of, well, I'm just gonna stay angry. I have a reason to be angry, and no, we gotta drop that cross. And it does require inner work because I don't think I would be here without the work that we've done. Don't you agree?
Oh, yes. And I remember I think it was a Tuesday right before Course in Miracles that you had that talk with him, that awareness, and you were just, it was so emotional. And I connected with that because it's true. You know, I went through this phase where I was very angry at him. I was fine. I went through the dark nights of the soul. Everything was good. And I had this beautiful moment with him where he showed me this beautiful love that he has for us that is so, it felt so thick, so dense, like so suffocating, but it was beautiful. And then I was just having a really hard time, like probably like years later, that I was having this really hard time. And I just got very angry at him. I'm like, why are you doing this? I don't understand. Like, what is this funny to you? Is this a joke to you? Like, what is this? And he let me have my moment, which I'm so grateful, because I'm like, I don't want to feel this. And I would tell him, I don't want to feel this, but I can't help it. I can't deny it. This is how I feel. If I'm going to heal, I need to be honest of what I'm feeling right now. And he was like, okay, he gave me my space. But then he came back to me and he said, okay, I need for you to trust me. And that's when I had that really serious conversation with him that morning. And I said, I don't want to feel this anymore. God, I want to feel that connection that I had with you before. And I don't want to be angry at you anymore. And later that day, he told me, I've always been there for you. I've always been there for you. And I'm there for you now. And I kept thinking to myself, if God has an army behind him, and he has my back, then that army has my back. And that's when I had that experience with that guy that I was gonna mug me, or I don't know what he was gonna do. In the middle of the day, literally a busy parking lot, he comes straight at me and I faced him. And I said, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to throw down with this guy right now. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. But I faced him, like I looked him straight in the eyes. I said, okay, I guess we're doing this. And he just like he hit a wall. Literally, he hit a wall and he started taking steps back and he like his eyes went wide open and he just walked away. in that moment, I'm like, I realized like I just had this conversation with God and then this happens. To me, that was affirmation of don't ever doubt me again. I am with you. I am always with you. And I have always been there with you.
Oh,
And it was a beautiful experience, like, okay. And then he brings my daughter's going through this difficult time. And then my daughter just all of a sudden she just goes straight in to God. Like I'm gonna follow God's rules. I'm gonna do what He says, and I'm gonna change everything to how I've been doing because obviously it's not working. And then I see this growth in her, this light in her, and I'm just like, wow, like He just more affirmation of her pulling me more towards God. And how can we not believe in Him and trust Him? Like He's our brother. How can we not look up to Him? He's our brother. You know what I mean? Like how can we not know that we are part of something greater? If he's our brother, that's our father. How? You know what I mean? Like there's a bigger thing happening here that we just don't realize. And if
absolutely.
we really want to get to heaven, we really want to experience it, like it's right there. It's right there. It's like we make it difficult. We're the ones putting the walls. We're the ones holding on so much to the trauma, to the hurt, to the this and that we're not allowing ourselves. And he's right there. He's at our reach, you know. And every time, and I love that we're doing this because every time is like another level up, another more of awareness, another growth that we keep getting closer and closer to that. And I think it's beautiful.
So beautifully said. So beautifully said. The problem there has always just been that because of the trauma, we forget who we are, and then we don't feel worthy of having this relationship with the divine. And if we think about our ancestors, like, isn't that my grandmother was such a religious person? She went to church all the time. She was always praying. Imagine if I think we're doing things that she wish she could do, which I, like you said, you've experienced that love, that unconditional love through meditation, through a big part of this is what we were talking about last week. You know, we were talking about the unified field, right? Us meditating, being able to use prana to go into this divine feminine and bring it back in. Well, that's what's happening with Kundalini yoga. You're regulating your nervous system, but you're also preparing it to hold this higher state of consciousness frequency, which is the Christ consciousness. It's the fourth state of plasma, of matter. Again, many women are born with it, and that's why they have the psychic gifts and all those things. But for me, like the fact that I was practicing Kundalini yoga, it was regulating my nervous system, but it was also allowing me to hold love more. I could not hold love because love was my enemy. I didn't understand, didn't know unconditional love. I think it's a gift, and it's very rare for a human being to know unconditional love and holy relationships. I have felt that, like what you described, right? I have felt that in ceremony and with plant medicine. I have felt that in meditation, but I am so blessed that I have felt that also with my children, that I have felt that with my husband. Like we're recording this on Valentine's Day, and he is my, like, he loves me unconditionally, and I love him unconditionally. That's what this is all about. That's the kingdom of heaven being restored to us in this physical body, not when we transition. But the problem, and this is what we had to work through, both of us, and we all women will need to work this, is that reality is not what happens to us, it's how we interpret it. That's what it is. It's perception. Shakespeare, what did he say? There's nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And no one taught us how to train the mind. That's what meditation is. The Course in Miracles, it's a meditation book, because every time you open, it's like the Bible. You're reading it, you're in meditation because you're in a different state of frequency. That's why our brother Jesus Christ spoke in parables. It's the in between, right? And of course, there's 365 lessons that you can practice, every day, like we've done in our community. That's a meditation. Meditation, I think people are like, let me just sit down and close my eyes and go into a coma. We talked about that. No, prayer, talking to God, meditation, listening to God, reading, connected to your Bible, connected to, but you interpreting it with your heart,
Even
not
just speaking. sitting there and feeling your feelings,
Exactly.
form of meditation.
A thousand, we want to get rid of all these negative feelings. You're a human being. There is no negative or positive. It's a moment in time and space that's just trying to show you what you are experiencing in only that moment in time and space. It's not who you are. But when we don't have our nervous systems regulated, we jump into the commotion. That's where we get in trouble with that Shakespearean quote. There's nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. It's our thinking. It's perception, it's interpretation. And that's why we can collapse time, like we talked about last week or in the last episode. If you all missed it, go check out the unified field episode, because that's one that is going to help you really debunk all these false narratives around meditation. But when we are able to actually collapse time, what does that mean? We're in the present. We're healing the mind and the nervous system. That means that we shift our perception about what we think happened to us. Two people can experience the same event. One is destroyed, one is transformed. And what's the difference here? Perception.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? It's just perception. And even now, because you and I have done so much healing work, stuff happens to us now, life, right? But our perceptions have changed of who we are and who God is. So I'm like, come at me, bro. Like, it don't matter what happens to me in my life. Sometimes, to be honest with you, I feel crazy because I don't feel anxious when shit is going down. I don't feel depressed when shit is going down. Like, my mom recently went through like a big illness. I was like, why did I have so much faith? Or I remember I used to get so nervous, like with even doing in-person events at the beginning. Like, I am not even afraid anymore. Like, it's like God is channeling through me. Why? Because the ego has been quieted down. All of these stories, all of these ways we have done because of the trauma. Now it doesn't matter. Life is beautiful. Life is joyful. Life is all aspects of life and cycles of life are part of the whole. I don't want to rush through anything. Even I was learning some big lessons through this prosperity journey in December and in January. I didn't even want to rush through that. I was like, perfect. This is exactly what I need to feel. I know what happens. Like, maybe because we've done these 40-day journeys so much, I know I gotta get really uncomfortable at the beginning. That's how the healing journey is, because you're going to face all these false beliefs, right? And then I know what's going to happen. That's why with the 40 days meditation, when someone comes to talk to me, I'm like, just stick to the 40 days meditation and let's talk after the 40 days, because I already know what's going to happen. If they actually stick to it, I already know. Yes, the first 2 weeks they're going to hate me. They're going to hate the meditation. They're going to be like, I don't need this. But then they're going to get to the 40th day. And then the 40th day, their brain will have changed and their nervous system will have changed. And then they're going to be like, whoa, now I know why I needed to do this. So I think a big part of all of this is having a lot of patience for ourselves, absolutely, because you can't rush it, but having a lot of courage to be able to say, you know what? I do have to do this inner work in order for me to not continue these same patterns. I don't know. What do you think?
I think with prayer right now, where you were talking about prayer, we need to learn how to pray
Yeah.
differently as well, just like we need to see things differently and change our perception. Because in prayer before, like I said previously in other podcasts, I used to feel that if I worried a lot about you and I thought about the worst case scenario of what could happen, then it wasn't going to happen. It's insane. Like, what do you mean? Like, you would think of the worst case scenario? Like, I would even think to myself, like, what, why do you do this to yourself? Like, you're torturing yourself. My daughter went to Costa Rica with her girlfriends, and she was nervous because there's been a lot of accidents with the airplanes. And she's
Oh,
like, Mommy. And I'm like, everything's going to be fine. You are divinely protected.
yeah.
Okay, just everything's gonna be fine. And she's like, Mommy, we just got on the plane. And I'm like, okay, Mommy, God bless you, I love you, everything's gonna be fine, let me know when you land. And the whole time, you as a mother, you wanted, you're like, oh my God. And it's like, no, she is divinely protected, she is going to get there safely. Thank you, God, for protecting her. All Archangel Michael, all the archangels or guardian angels, my benevolent ancestors, I know you have her and you guys are protecting her and guiding her, and she's going to get there safely and she's going to be there safely. She's going to have fun and you're going to bring her back home safely. I know. You know what I mean? We have to change how we're praying because a lot of times we're praying, we're like, God, please, can you
Yeah,
do this for me? God, please, can you? Now I completely is different for me. Now I'm like, thank you, God, for showing me. Thank you, God, for healing me. Thank you, God, for letting me see clearly. Thank you, God, for all of these blessings, you
right.
know, because we're programmed to pray to God, but it's like when we hear prayer, I think even in religion, we're like asking, asking instead of if it's already in us, it's because we're meant to have it. Like that guy from Kabbalah, David Yum, he always says, and if it's in, if you have like this wish or this dream, it's because you're meant to have it. So if you're meant to have it, you might not have it now because you're not spiritually, emotionally, or your soul's not ready to receive it, and somebody's just holding it for you for now.
Beautiful.
But if you have it in your dream that this is what you want, then it's because you're meant to have it. So you need to become that person. So a lot of times it's like, thank you, God, for letting me see things clearly. Thank you, God, for changing my perception. Thank you, God, because now I'm able to forgive, even though you're not there yet.
Right.
But saying that like you're already, it's already done. It's already done and completed.
Yes, that's so beautiful. The course teaches us so much about how to pray because, like you're saying, and kudos to you because that's how a mother should be protecting her children. You know, like we think worrying is normal and that we've talked about this in this episode, but like you're literally doing like a negative prayer on your child. So again, you in order to avoid that, we have to heal ourselves, ladies, and we have to regulate our nervous system because our children are gonna have their own life journeys and their own karma to move through, and that's not negative. They're moving through life, right? And by you praying in that way, that's what protects her. A lot of our children, the reason why they're not protected is because we as parents don't pray for them. We don't cover them in light. Why? Because we have such a messed up relationship with God, because of the pain and all of this. So that in itself is beautiful and kudos to that. The other thing about this is that I think that the whole thing about the way we've been conditioned to see and perceive God is that it doesn't matter if I ask or if I pray, it's not going to happen anyways. So what's the point? Or um, it's very frantic. What happens when we start getting into very worry? Well, you go straight down the rabbit hole, right? In insanious worry. There's people that can't stop that. It goes back to the nervous system, ladies. It's not that you're broken. It's not that, you're possessed or whatever. It's just that your nervous system is very, very reactive. And we have to release that pain in order to make space for the love, that forever presence of love that God has put and bestowed upon us. And that's why this journey is a journey. It's not, I mean, even when my mom was going through her illness recently, it's not that I never worried. Like I had cycles, right? But compared to the way I was even a year or 5 years ago, it was like what you said right now. God was preparing me for that so that I could be an anchor, right? And I did the best I could. And when I couldn't do the best, meaning I was crying, falling apart, that's what I did too. And I wasn't trying to hide it. I wasn't trying to like pretend that I'm the strong one. That was the old me. No, no, no. The new me feels it all. And even in front of her. This is not about, again, what this gives us, I don't know about you, is like authenticity. Like you
Yes.
can just be yourself, regardless. If you're angry, you know you're angry in that moment and you can bring yourself back and apologize. Again, I don't want people to think that like just because we're like in this, we accept and life is happening to us, that we don't also go through emotions anymore and that emotions are bad or that it's the difference I think now for me is that I don't revert back to the pain. It's more about what am I experiencing right here, right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I do want to clarify, like, yeah, we get angry and upset, but it's at a different, more calmer level.
Yes, 1,000%.
Like, we're not saying it's okay. Oh, he beat me because he was upset,
Yeah.
and that's okay. No, no, that's not okay.
Exactly.
There's different levels of we're able to be more vulnerable with each other It's
Right.
okay. This is what I'm feeling. I'm sad right now. I'm angry. And
Right.
even when I'm angry, even when I get upset with my husband, it doesn't escalate to this crazy level of like, that's it. And like it's just more like, okay, dude, when you're upset, I'm upset. Go do your thing. I'll do my thing. And then we'll calm down later and we'll come back together again.
Yeah.
It's not, we don't take it to that level. Before it was very toxic.
Right.
I feel it was very toxic the way we would argue and fight as an example.
Right.
We're not saying that's okay. I just want to make sure people don't
No, yeah, I
think
know. That's
that's
what I was like.
okay. Oh, he was angry and he's just being himself. I'm like, no, no.
Exactly. Or even we were talking about with parents. We did a podcast episode of why children go no contact with their parents. Very common. And if a child goes no contact with their parent, I think 1,000% is the parents' um duty to bring that healing back. It's not the child's duty. Again, we just create those boundaries and go do the healing work ourselves. You still got to do the healing work, even if mom has transitioned. In fact, people or dad, that have where their parents have transitioned, that's where they suffer the most if they did not do the healing work. It doesn't get easier just because your mom and dad are not there anymore. In fact, that's where the real resentment and the real, my gosh, should I have just forgiven them? Should I have just said this? You don't want to wait until it gets to that point, right? And again, there will be times where there will be no closure. And that is such a high consciousness lesson that, I mean, our brother Jesus Christ didn't have closure, you know, and he didn't need it. And again, these things become easier the more that you regulate your nervous system, but also the spiritual psychotherapy for me, like I said, like we both talked about this, it just got us so closer to God, to the true essence of who God really is, which I know that that's the real God. And anybody who might say, well, how do you know? Well, guess what? I was able to forgive and love unconditionally all these people that have hurt me. I don't think that a fake God would be telling, why would a fake God want us to all love each other and to forgive each other? Like, I don't see that. Do you at all?
Bring all this healness to us, all
Exactly.
this awareness to us where we're actually growing and doing better in our relationships. Like,
Correct.
how could that not be God?
Correct.
And unfortunately, I have people who don't speak to their moms, and they've had like a meeting, for instance, to try to come into an agreement, or kind of see how I bring peaceness into the relationship, and it's just not there.
Right.
You tell me it didn't work. It didn't work. I couldn't speak to her. She's just like, no. And
Right.
she's not listening to me or my side of the story, whatever. And then unfortunately, it's like, okay, it's not meant to be. Maybe at this point, maybe later on in life, I don't know, but being okay with, okay, that's how it has to be at this point.
That is so wise, Elvira, because I think that was the entire lesson for you to not like compartmentalize and look, this is what healing looks like, and this is the only way that I know that I've been healed, because it's so different from everyone. We were just talking this morning in Satna, because we're recording this on Valentine's Day, and we're talking about love, and one of the community members actually joined us as she was going through a divorce. And now it's only been a year officially since her divorce, and she shared this morning, I can't believe that I could say that I feel whole and complete and that I love
Um,
myself. I was like, this is so beautiful. Like, do you understand? Especially with what she went through, was a very difficult divorce where the guy was completely unconscious and all this. And that woman in the academy has stood her ground. She has, I tell her, you've been always been protected by angels and God, because you are such a beautiful soul. This soul that can love unconditionally and so wise beyond years. And to see her, like it just finalized, and to see her in her light and to see her moving forward with conviction, it's like, oh my God, like how many women get a divorce or split up and they're completely angry and in pain for the rest of their lives, or in guilt.
and
And
I've seen her growth, and it's amazing because she's been so committed every Tuesday, every Wednesday, every morning. She's there. And she said it before. There were many times where we would say, like, we had a download, like, when we say we had a download to us, is we had an awareness from God, like, oh, like an aha moment, like, oh, I now I understand. And I just recently, not that long ago, months ago, she said, I couldn't understand every time you guys would say you guys had a download. I'm starting to get those now, and I'm starting because she's been so committed for years. She wouldn't, in my respects, because there were times she would tell stories about stuff that was going on. I'm like, oh no, how
Mm,
does she even face that? And she's
exactly.
just been so committed to her growth, to just loving herself and to be there now. Oh, that's beautiful. It's
It's
beautiful.
it's astonishing, but it's the story of all of us.
Yes, and then to have our other member who's getting married today. Oh my God, it's so exciting for her. Like what a beautiful journey. Like I love our community because I see the growth in everybody. I'm just like, oh,
Exactly.
congratulations to her getting married.
Oh, yes. That's such a beautiful union. And think about it, if they wouldn't have done the healing work, both of them, one would not be loving herself and accepting that this was the healing for her was the divorce. It wasn't healing the relationship, it was the divorce. Same thing with the parents sometimes. And then the other one, she was divorced too, and then she had so much guilt because we don't get divorced in our culture, right? Where she did the healing work to align with this a soulmate, like her twin flame, like somebody who's like I tell her, you all are made for each other. And now she's like, if I wouldn't have done this healing work, I don't think I would have gotten married because I would have said, I don't want to get married. I no, stay away from me. And now she's like, I deserve this. I deserve this. And he's been wanting to take care of her and she's allowing it instead of being in this toxic masculinity. Like it is absolutely astounding and it's inspirational. That's why I'm saying it's all of us coming together. We're all the 12 disciples. We all have our own story, yet it's the same story. There's not differences or similarities, but yet the way that all of you have carried yourself, that is just like, I'm around goddesses every time. So if we can do it, it's possible for anyone to do it. Does it require conviction and commitment, like you said? Absolutely. But is it worth it? Oh my God, yes. Because I could not fathom continuing the martyr program, the program of God is just this punishing father in the sky who's going to continue to judge me for the rest of my life. So as hard as it has been, it also has been a pleasure, hasn't it?
And we have our episodes. There's times where I do feel I still go back and I still feel like I'm a victim,
Totally.
but I snap out of it really fast. I don't stay there too long. It's like a moment in time, like it's still those old roots or those old habits, they'll still kind of pull me back and throw me off a little bit. But I don't stay there like before,
Exactly.
which is grateful. And I'm surrounded by these beautiful women, my sister, who are, they like, hey, come back. And I'm like, okay, just listening to you guys, a lot of times it's just like, okay, I'm back. Like what I needed to hear, you know?
That's exactly how I feel too. And then you all share exactly what I'm going through. So it's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I needed to hear today too.
Yeah.
So I think that the core idea of what we're trying to say, not I think I know, is that you're not healing. You're remembering who you were before trauma taught you to forget. That's what we're doing here. Instead
Yeah.
of saying things like, behold me, brother, at your hand I die, we're saying, behold me, brother, at your hand I live. I know that's radical. I know that's our brother Jesus Christ. But if our brother Jesus Christ said, you will go do bigger things that I have ever done, I believe that. When I read that, I was like, all right. Well, then, if you're telling me that, you're gonna help me. That was the only contract, you know? If you're saying that, then you're gonna help me. And to this day, I can tell you that everything I owe is to God and to Jesus Christ and to La Virgencita de Guadalupe. And my mom will say I owe it to her too because she says she prayed for me, but we can't fully prove that yet. But I guess I would say, as it relates to what we can reflect on, who do you want to be for your ancestors? Who do you want to be for future generations? Your grandkids are going to be talking about you.
I want to be this beautiful beacon of light.
Mm, I love it. I love it.
My sole purpose is to lead by example.
Exactly.
And I fought it for so long. I was told this since I was a child because
Mm.
I'm the oldest. Tú tienes que ser el ejemplo, Elvira. You need to be the example for your. And I'm like, why do I have to be the example? Like, I used to fight it all the time. Like, what? Why me? Why not them? They're older. They're not kids, Like, but now it's just like, what a privilege. What a
Exactly.
privilege that I get to be an example. Has it been off peace and light? No, it hasn't, but it has been so worth it because it's brought so much peace and love and healing that I know I'm not done yet. There's still more forgiveness I need to do, more healing I need to do in my heart, but I see the progress. I feel it. So I want to be able to show my kids and show my grandkids and be like, yeah, she fought all the way to, like, not fight, but I mean, like, she pushed through and she did it. And I, like, how can that not be a privilege?
Yes. Oh my God, so beautiful. I can't even the same thoughts as you. It is a privilege. It's a big privilege because I understand our ancestors didn't have. I feel blessed that God put us on this path and that God gave us the courage and the awareness to feel worthy enough to even think that this was possible. So wherever you are in your journey, as you're listening to this, you may be at that beginning step of awareness of saying, man, am I willing to see things differently? Could I possibly stop living the way I've always lived and complete pain and disconnection from myself and from God? That's really where it starts, just asking those little simple questions. And then the rest, the way God works in the universe is like it just almost folds into exactly what you need, the people, the right places to be at the right time. And the rewards are endless. And I hope that as a society, more of us actually think about that question. Like, what kind of ancestor are you going to be? Because
And
we, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead, finish.
I was just going to say, because we really are leaving this planet behind for our children.
Yeah. I just hope, there's, I know men watch this as well, but I really hope that it doesn't matter your age, that you don't think I'm too old. I really hope you don't think, oh, I'm too old to change. The statistics say, like, at a certain age, they're not going to change. I hope you don't believe that. If your soul is calling you and you're watching this and something inside you, if you ask God, show me the way and really show me, no matter how painful it is, let me see clearly and give me the awareness that I need and put around me the people that I need in order to keep following this light of yours, He will give it to you. And He will put those people in your path and you will get the awareness and take the time to process it because it's gonna hit you and you'll be like, what? this this is not what I thought. It's like, well, it really isn't. You know what I mean? That awareness that you thought was real, it isn't real. This is what's real. And if it's painful, as in painful as it might be, it's part of the growth and it's beautiful to actually be there.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that because it's true. It doesn't matter how old you are. You can I didn't start until my 30s, and many of our community members are 40s, 50s, and I think almost like the younger part of ours don't we kind of like stay away from the healing. It seems like almost like once you start getting into your 30s, that's when you're like, "Oh shit, I don't have to live like this." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So please do not be afraid. That's such a great point. Doesn't matter if you've never done any healing journey, if you any time of inner work, it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter if you've never meditated or anything. The point here is to be willing, and it does require a lot of courage because we have so many programs. The program of, again, I'm not worthy for the healing, the religious program, the societal program. There's a lot, and that's why community is very, very important, and it became such a instrumental part of my healing journey, and which is why it was a desire or a calling from God to create these communities because I couldn't have done my own healing journey without my sisters. Like, I'm very blessed that I have two sisters that the one that was after me, her and I are always bickering because I was always jealous of her because she came after me, you know, and I was like, her and I were always like not clicking when we were little, but then when we grew up, we became really, really close. And my other little one, like I've never fought with her in my life, you know, she's now teaching A Course in Miracles, because I've always protected her, like she was always the little one, you know, and they've always been there for me. They've never lied to me. They're very honest. They never let me sit in my victimhood. They never let me, but they're also very compassionate, you know, and very kind. And I didn't have a lot of girlfriends like that. Like the only one that I've had was like you. We've been friends for such a long time where I could be authentically myself with you. But I was like, this is not the norm. We need to do this more for community. And when we together created this virtual community, it's like all the right ones came. Like it was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And the whole idea of like, oh my God, it's not just me, because this kind of stuff makes you feel very like ashamed, very embarrassed. Like it's just me, it's just my family that's dysfunctional. That stuff is like the biggest lie. And I think the people that almost like try to play this front of being so perfect are the ones that are struggling the most, because that's who I was, you know, like just pretend everything's okay and no one's gonna notice. Is that what was happening with you too?
Oh yeah, the perfect family.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, oh, they're the perfect family, and it's like all this, like backstage, all this drama happening and all this toxicity, and then yeah, no, thank God we're my sister too. She's on this healing journey, and we had to go through a separation for a while, and I see now it was necessary. She was going through her healing, and I was going through mine, and it was just needed to come back together, and now we're stronger than ever, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for that. And then our community, you always think you're alone, that you're the only one, that nobody's feeling the same way you are. There's nobody's going through the same thing you are because nobody talks about it. You know, we meet people on the street. How you doing? Good. How's everything? Oh, everything's good. Social media. Oh, everything's fantastic. Nobody really knows the truth of what's actually happening. So, and even our younger generation, I hope they, you know, I see it in my daughters, I see it in my kids, and I'm just like, okay, this is really good. This is good. And I hope more younger people too realize that they don't have to continue it, and they catch it sooner than when we did.
Yes, I think you're right. I think the younger generations are learning more faster. Like your daughter's ages and and your son and mine. Like my sons are like, I'm not just saying this because they're my sons, but they're like incredibly conscious
Oh
men.
yes, yes. And I love that about them. I'm like, oh, we need more men like this.
You and they truly, I mean, I take pride in that also because if I wouldn't have healed myself, I don't know what would have happened. You know, I'm sure my husband and I would not still be married, and who knows what they would have been going through. So.
Yeah.
So it's totally possible, ladies, and it just takes a little bit of willingness. That's really where it does. So where can you start? Well, right now the academy is closed for enrollment, but you can always join us in our free community, the Sovereign Sisterhood Movement. That is in our Facebook group. I do host a live weekly healing session that follows up to this podcast where we go deeper into these teachings as well as share with you the specific meditations, mantras, the Course in Miracles, spiritual psychotherapy work that's going to help you. That's one way to begin with this. And then also you can join us at Satori Vitality and Spirituality. That's our monthly membership community where we host 3 weekly classes as well as monthly rituals like the full moon, new moon, equinoxes, and eclipses. That is going to start your journey to increase vitality, to really get your nervous system prepared for not only harnessing these higher consciousness teachings, but ultimately so that you can have the prana to go beyond the program and start to really shift these perceptions. And it doesn't matter if you, like I said, if you've never read the course, that you don't know anything about Jesus Christ, or you've never practiced Kundalini yoga, this is for beginners. So you can come in at any time and feel like, okay, I don't need to know what happened in the back or in the future. So check out the link below in the comments. And then also, I keep forgetting, but please, thank you for all of you that have subscribed. Thank you for sharing this. I don't ask a lot for people to like and comment, but I'm gonna start doing it more because I know that that's the only way for us to actually grow this movement. And we thank all of you have been so supportive here on YouTube, on Spotify, everywhere where podcasts have been streamed. We thank you for your direct messages. I know that these teachings are making an impact in you, but again, We highly appreciate the fact that you're hitting that like button, that you're sharing it with others, and that you're subscribing, because we do have a weekly episode every single week. Anything else before we close out, Elvira?
No, I think we're good. I think with this, well, when we're recording this, but let's just go out there with love in our hearts.
Beautifully said. Enough said. Thank you all so, so much for being here. Like I said, and we will see you all again in the next episode. Set now.